Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby League, a show where two rugby league tragics talk everything rugby league on your way to and from work. I'm Shano.
And I'm the chameleon.
Welcome aboard and on with the show. Griffo, welcome back for another week of Carpool Rugby League. We've had round one, interesting round to say the least. I think if a lot of people did well in their tipping, good on you. You're far better than me. I did not go so well, but that's okay. That's what the rest of the year's for. I hope. Um,
I think the top score and there's a lot of people on the same score in the Carpool Rugby League
yeah.
tipping is four. I think
Yes. Four,
we've got a
five, four,
family
five,
one,
maybe. I know. Benny done pretty well.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
Well, I was 2 from 2 after
yeah,
the
good,
first part about
good.
Las Vegas, and then
Yeah,
I'm 2 from 6 for
yeah.
the rest
That
of the round.
that was
Not so good.
it was
Yeah.
tough to pick, and some real upsets, and we'll go through the. I suppose when we go through the games. Um, Before we do that, Griffo, uh, two quick questions. Spencer Linu, 8 weeks expected.
I think it was expected. I don't agree with it. I think 4 to 6 would have been
Yep.
appropriate. I don't think he meant it in a racist way, as he said.
Mm.
Um,
Yep.
I'm not going to, go
Yeah.
over the whole thing
Yeah. No.
again.
No. No.
Everyone's,
No. But
sort of sick of it. But
yeah, it's got a lot
look,
of
I would have
airplay.
been, call it 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I think that would have been enough. If he had 6 weeks, he would have been back in time for the Roosters game against the Broncos up in Brisbane. That will add a little bit of spice, I think, to that game. Not that it will need too much, but apparently with the 8 weeks, I heard this morning that he's ruled out of the return clash.
Yep.
But look, lesson learned for Spencer.
Yes.
Lesson for all NRL players.
100%.
You've got to be careful what you say, irrespective of the intent with which it is said. I don't think Spencer Leniu is a racist. But anyway, that's what I think.
I'm happy.
Ezra, man, I don't know if he's happy. I don't know if Latrell's happy. I don't know if Nico Hines is happy.
Don't know.
What I'm not happy about was all those guys, not Ezra, but all these other guys coming out before the hearing and talking about, rubbing him out for 12 weeks and so on.
I think it's interesting. I'm with you. I was actually going to put full stop on it, move on. I will just jump on that a little bit. Once anything goes to the judiciary, no member of the team can actually have a say publicly on what they think. They're not allowed to. It's part of the protocols. I think that needs to be extended to the whole NRL community. If someone took another player's head off, whilst players can have an idea, no one can actually come out in the media and in the press, or no one from that team. And I think it's a bit. I understand this is a different kettle of fish slightly, but I think it's very unfair when, because it's a judicial matter, no one from the Roosters can actually stick up for him. And I felt like, not that I condone racism, but I felt that people were happy to put the boot in, full well knowing that no one would fire back. And now he's got his 8 weeks. Well, they're not going to fire back. That's just the way it is. But anyway, what caught your eye this week, Griff?
Hard to keep changing it, Shano.
Yes, very good.
I probably about half the games I probably watched the mini rather than the full game.
Yeah.
But the guy I'm giving the grab to this week is a guy who he's the ultimate in rocks and diamonds. He was diamonds last week. He scored 3 tries, and for all 3 tries, he wasn't the guy that sort of set up the try. But he just found space, and he's got amazing pace. It's the young fullback from the Dragons, Tyrell Sloan.
Yep.
He hits a hole wonderfully well. And some of the lead-up work, I think the first try, it was big Raymond Fatala Marina, who gave him a beautiful ball for him to go over for the first try. The second try, little Jacob, the hooker, little Jacob just caught through, and we've seen him do it in the past. He did it for the Tigers. He's done it once or twice for the Dragons. Just caught through and held the pass up beautifully for Sloan, who loomed up beside him, and Sloan had the pace. And then the third try, I can't remember if it was a Ben Hunt or Carl Flanagan pass, but it was a short ball into a gap that didn't seem to be there. But Sloan just hit that very, very small hole beautifully. And congratulations to him. Congratulations to the Dragons. I have the Dragons as my spoon.
Yes. As did I.
And, it's only round one.
Yeah,
but if we can reproduce that sort of performance every week, they're going to have a decent season.
I think so. Tyrell Sloan, 2 line breaks. Zach Lomax ran for 265 metres, most run metres of the game. So, it's
most run metres for an unhappy winger ever.
Yes, yes, that's true. Very true. Well, whilst we're talking about the games this weekend, the Titans did lose to the Dragons, staying on that game on Saturday, 28-4. Other games this week, we'll go back to Vegas if you forgot about those. 36-24 Seagulls over Bunnies. Roosters 20-10 over Broncos. Bunnies play Broncos this week. That could be something of an issue for South Sydney if they've got to pull their socks up. Raiders over the Knights. Knights looked poor at times in that game. Not taking anything away from the Raiders, who won 28-12, but the Knights at home, round one, they weren't great. Warriors showed every NRL team and every team that plays rugby league in either juniors, seniors, masters how to throw away a win. 16-12, they lost that game after seemingly being in control. Storm 8-0 over the Panthers.
Complete control, Shane.
Oh, they were in complete control. They threw that game. I can't believe that they lost that. Storm 8-0 over Panthers. It was an interesting game. I got to say, you looked at the scoreline. I know scoreline probably doesn't say a lot, but I thought it was an interesting game of rugby league actually. 26-8. Bulldogs lost to the Eels. Eels were very good. The Bulldogs have problems, and I think the longer they have Matt Burton as a playmaker rather than a running centre, those problems are going to continue. We spoke about the Dragons over the Titans, and what was a really bizarre match at times, 43-18, Cowboys over the Dolphins. They won that. Anything in those games did you see, Griff, that really certain teams? I've got to be honest. For me it was teams that lost probably. The teams that lost that probably made me think more about what's happening. And the Knights and the Warriors were two of those teams where watching those games, I just thought, geez, Knights just didn't want to turn up and the Warriors threw the game away. What do you think of this round?
Well, yeah, a lot of upsets and some surprising, very good performances from teams that I didn't expect were going to perform. Dragons, I mentioned, they were outstanding against the Titans. Titans very disappointing. The Sharks did not look in that game at all. It looked like the Warriors by how much? They were leading the timepiece at 12-0 and just looked like every time they got the ball, they're running 15, 20 metres on a hit-up. It just looked like they were going to rip them apart, and they didn't score again.
Yep.
Credit to the Sharks' defence for hanging in there. Credit to the Sharks in general. I don't rate them, but that was a very good win.
That's one of those wins where I think they're going to look back on it and go, like, that's 2 points banked for what is usually a fairly simple draw for them. That was probably, if you're talking about certain games they're not going to win, you thought that was one. So, they'd be happy. They would have a buzz about this week at training because, I don't know how they won that match in the end.
Yeah, no, they played well. Cowboys were very good. Dolphins were not. I know we haven't got our captain, but I've got Gaff.
Yeah.
I've got two, actually. Both out of that game.
Yeah.
One was from a member of the officiating panel.
Oh, yeah.
The video referee who found a penalty try. And I think she was the only person who thought it was a penalty try. But it sort of turned around. There was another try that went against the Cowboys that I thought was probably a try. So that doesn't make it right. But I can't remember who was awarded a penalty try, but it was an infringement by, I think, Jack Bostock, who allegedly pushed someone and stopped him from score or giving him an opportunity to score.
Yeah.
I don't think even the guy from the Cowboys thought it was a... But there it was. And the other one was from a guy who apparently got a Dally M point out of the game.
Right.
Which underlines my lack of faith in any sort of award system. The Hammer, who I think that is an outstanding rugby league player, he did one of the more unusual things that I've ever seen. Kick went through.
I know.
About three Cowboys chasing it, and Hammer sort of just puts his foot to the ball, which kicks it straight into the balloon, I think it was.
Yeah.
William Lukey.
Yep.
Who just
it was the easiest try I'd ever score. It was hilarious.
That was unbelievable.
I was actually going to say, if you didn't bring that up, I'd actually say that's the easiest try the balloon will ever score. It was funny. It was funny.
He was flying the balloon. But I don't know, but apparently the Dally M people now, they're all anonymous.
Okay. So was that a try? Did they say that was a try assist and that got him over the line?
That's what I'm thinking. I think they thought it was a try assist from the Hammer, because, and again, look, I didn't see the whole game, but what I saw, the Hammer
I was
had
the
a poor
same.
game.
I don't think anyone from the Dolphins deserved anything.
No,
to be
they
honest.
got walloped. Like, how did anyone in a red jersey? But anyway, the other one, I think, apparently Adam Reynolds got a point.
Really?
Out of the
really?
The loss of the Broncos to the Roosters. I mean, how did he get a point?
Really? Jeez.
I don't. That's what I heard this morning.
Jesus.
Or either this morning or yesterday.
Wow.
But,
I hadn't seen the full list. I'd only seen the top.
I have no faith in it. Like, honestly.
I know.
But the controversy was more about the fact that the judges are now not listed. They used to be listed, apparently, or sort of named and shamed, I guess. But whoever those two judges were, wow,
jeez, that's pretty. That's insane. That's insane. One last thing before we preview this week's games. Brings me. It's actually your team I'm going to talk about here, Griffo. An obstruction call, but I don't think anyone could understand how it was called. I think, are we at the point where there's certain things? I've seen a couple of things this week, and I know it's round one, but are we starting to see this idea where we're overcomplicating and slowing things down to the point where every try could be given no try? I don't know.
Well, look, the referee actually live played.
Yeah.
He said there's no obstruction there.
Yeah.
Hence he pointed to the spot, and then the video ref found something that was wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, at the time, thought this is a 50-50.
Yeah, okay.
And unfortunately, it went the wrong way. I believe Ivan Cleary, in his press conference, and I haven't watched it yet, but I do need to watch it. I believe he was quite critical of that decision. As I said, I thought it was a 50-50.
Yeah.
The actual defender was not impeded, the one closest to the ball, but apparently they were saying it affected the choice of the defenders on the outside.
Yeah, and that's where
that's an interpretation, really.
And you know what frustrates me is for years when we talked about the shoulder, we've seen tries given where we thought, well, if he's come on the outside shoulder and the ball's gone round, it's obstruction. And you go, okay, fine. And then all of a sudden, last year I saw it quite a bit where the referee would go, he's made a defensive decision.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, if this is the way we're going now, fine. As long as it's consistent. What I saw in that game was the total opposite. Where the video ref goes, he was forced into a decision that was the wrong one. Well, I go for South Sydney. I saw a million decisions that were the wrong one against Manly. I would have loved a penalty.
Shane, there was a try that went against the Rabbitohs. I can't remember who scored it, but
yes,
it was a common sense.
Yes, it was.
Perfect decision where they said, I think it was Cam Murray.
Yep.
Made a defensive decision.
Yep.
That was wrong, and the try was awarded. And I thought, whoever that video ref was, you should be in the box for every game.
And you know what? Whenever I put myself in the position of, okay, pretend South scored that, I'd be upset if that was taken off us, which in my mind then I'd say is a try. And I had no problems with that. I actually thought, I agree with you, I thought it was a very common sense decision that was made by the video ref. But that one the other night, that was...
Yeah, look, I'm not going to bitch about it too much.
No.
As I said, I thought it was 50-50. I thought the common sense came from the on-field referee who said there was no obstruction.
Who has the best view and the best
view? Sometimes, sometimes. But like as you put yourself there in the opposition, and if you're following the other team, you think that's a 50-50 as well. So it was Penrith's best piece of play in the whole game.
Yeah.
In a game. Look, and then they're struggling in attack. Can't sugarcoat it. They're really struggling. They've gone 3 halves of football in a row without scoring.
Yeah.
Second half of the Wigan game.
Yeah.
And the 2 halves against the Storm.
Yeah.
And look, the Storm defense, it was outstanding. Like it wasn't as if Penrith weren't throwing anything at them.
Yeah.
But they just gobbled up whatever Penrith were able to throw. And I do, and I know it was a very similar start last year for the Panthers, where the attack just they struggled to score points, but at least they got some points.
Yeah.
I do think they've got some issues. The drain of talent out of the side year by year is, I really think it's starting to take its toll at the moment. Yeah. The only guy really who's looking dangerous is Taylor May.
Yep.
Now, yes, they'll get better in attack, but I just think the number of bullets that they can fire is quite limited. And part of that is to do with their lack of height. And in this new interpretation of rules and so forth, it really favours teams with the tall timber like the Roosters. Yeah. And we saw Melbourne, they only scored 1 try, but the try was scored by the fact that Xavier Coates and Warbrick and these sorts of guys can jump just as well as Brian Toto and Sanuya Taruva, but these other guys are half a foot taller.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Melbourne have shown one of the ways to really exploit the Panthers, and I don't know what they're going to do about that, because I dare say none of them are growing any taller at their age.
No, unless they get on the rack or something, that's not going to happen. Well, on Thursday, 8 p.m. at Suncorp Stadium, football starts again for round 2. The Broncos play the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Ins for the Broncos are all on the bench. They're 1-17 as they were, as it appears they were, in Vegas. South Sydney are quite a different story. They're without Jacob Host and Jai Arrow. Jai Arrow rotator cuff injury, from what we understand, is being monitored, given 4 to 6 weeks to see if it needs surgery. It's a season-ending injury regardless. They're going to give him 4 to 6 weeks. If after 4 to 6 weeks there's no improvement, his season will be over, which that's massive when you consider Campbell Graham's out as well.
Yeah.
Just to go through them quickly, because there is a few changes. Their 1-7 is the same. Their forwards look like this: Totola, Cook, Kepi, Kolomatangi, Tallis Duncan is in at the second row with Cameron Murray.
It's a really good-looking puck.
Yeah, Shakai Mitchell comes to the interchange bench. 2 people on the reserves for South Sydney, which is really interesting. Is three. Jai Gray, Mamezelos, and Dean Hawkins. And I'll get through that. I'll get to that in a minute, because I think this is a real pivotal game for South Sydney. But Griffo, who wins this game, and why do you think they win?
Well, I got to favour the Broncos here.
Yep.
Souths were ordinary in Las Vegas, and I think Duncan coming in is a an assist to them. And also Shaq Mitchell added to the squad. Yep. But the weakness of Richie Kenner in the centres is they haven't done anything about that. So to me, Richie Kenner is a winger. I don't recall him playing in the centres previously, and he was exposed as expected when they come against Manly in round 1. I don't know that Richie Kenner is going to be able to contain the likes of Walsh, whether he's up against Staggs or Cobbo, Mam. The firepower that the Broncos have is for mine, I think, going to really worry the south side backs. That's where I think the game will be won. Yeah. I think the forward packs are both strong, and I think they basically will cancel each other out. Reynolds v. Ilias. Reynolds has got the better kicking game.
That scares
Ilias has got youth on his side. Mann v. Walker, both very dangerous players. I thought Cody Walker was extremely quiet in Las Vegas. The only threat the Rabbitohs had that night in attack seemed to be Latrell.
Yep.
Cody's got to step up here. I know he was under an injury cloud, but he's had a week off now. He has to step up for these guys to be any chance. Broncos will feel they need to win because they're currently on 0, as are the Rabbitohs. But unless Souths can produce an 80-minute effort from their best players, have to really step up here. They're capable of it, but I think I'm going to tip the Broncos. I just think they've got more firepower, and some of their players are, I think, just a little bit more reliable in the big moments. Mitchell v. Walsh, that's going to be obviously, they're the 2 most exciting players in the game. The both wearing number 1. But I just think the Broncos have got more bullets to fire, and I've got concerns about the outside backs of South's ability to stop the Broncos, Shane.
I'm with you. My biggest problem is going to be South Sydney's ability to hold the ball in their own 40. That caused 2 tries last week, plus an intercept. I think the biggest problem for South Sydney is just going to be defensively holding it together. Ilias, in my opinion, has one more week. If his kicking game is anything like the one it was in Las Vegas, where it's just gifting the opposition the ball without any real issues, repeat sets are just, South Sydney could buy one towards the end of the season the same way at the start. I really think the coach has to change tact. I really felt last week that it was the same old towards the end of last year, just with something new on it. I know in the press they're like, when Jack Whiten, I'm sorry, that team should have beaten Manly without Jack Whiten. They had the troops to do so. They got the troops to make the Broncos think. I just don't think they've got the steel. I don't think they're coached well enough at the moment to do it. I think that they're in a rut. Their halfback can't kick them out of it. Latrell tried to do everything last week, and that's the problem. Once he tries to do everything, he's just nullified by himself. And that's not having a dig. That's just when you try and do everything, you're just guaranteed to make mistakes. I think their forward pack is trying hard. I think that's the silver lining for South Sydney, and maybe if they can get their defence together, they can sort of defend a win. It's going to be very hard against the Broncos side, which is just electric. I've got the Broncos winning well. I really think at the end of round 2, South Sydney will be seriously thinking, we've got a guy on the bench in Hawkins who has played a lot in New South Wales Cup, I know, but whose kicking game is very, very good. Who was pretty much the understudy to Adam Reynolds in regards to his kicking game. It's going to be very interesting. I think that if another 60-minute performance is produced by a team with the people they got in there, and I know Jai Arrow's out, and that's a big blow, but there's Colomatungi's still there. You've got some pretty good people on the bench. They shouldn't have thrown away what they did in Las Vegas. I think this is going to be a bit of a... Sadly, I think it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath up in...
Really?
Oh yeah, I think South's going to get pumped. I think at the end of the season last year, I really didn't think they were working. They weren't working for each other. Maybe as a unit, as a team they were. I think the coach really is at a loss. I think he's struggling to try and find Ilias is fit in his side. I think he's sold that he has to have Ilias in this team. And this guy's kicking game is just horrendously poor. From a guy who's done more than 50 games. And, I'm not playing the NRL, so I'm not having to dig that way. But as a fan, I'm telling you now, there was not one grubber last week. And we gifted them up, and we gifted them ball. It's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So anyway, I there's other games to preview, and not just the South one, but I think that it's going to be, I think Souths are in trouble, and I think we're now starting to see more than just the tip of the iceberg when you consider the end of last year's season and how that went for South Sydney. So I think on Monday it's going to be a very interesting conversation with Jack Whiten joining the fold, and their next game's against the Roosters. So good luck to them.
Well, Shano, I can say there were a lot of upsets last week. So
there were, so maybe we'll have another one. Look,
maybe this will be an upset.
I'll be happy to burn a tip if South Sydney wins. But on Friday, at PointsBet Stadium, we have the Cronulla Sharks up against the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. A few ins for both sides. Few ins. Atkinson, Beryl. Most are on the extended bench for both sides. Interestingly, where we see again Toby Sexton's on the reserve bench.
Wasted there.
Yeah, I think so. I know Josh Adokar, he sustained an injury. They're basically naming him there for the very, more or less to the very end in the hope that he can get there. I don't think he will. He looked pretty quick last week.
Oh, he's out.
I think he's out. I really think that I think that if you had I think if Matt Burton went into Kiraz's position and Toby Sexton was in at the halves, I really think that's a better looking back line than what they've got. The Bulldogs at times looked like a team that sort of put something together. I found it very interesting that the only time they really looked good was when the ex-Penrith players were linking up. Sharks won last week in a game where you don't know if the Sharks won or the Warriors lost. I think in this game, when I look at these two sides, I see a team that's sort of remembered how to win. Be interesting to see how Talakai, bit of an injury cloud over him, named in the centres. Interesting to see if he plays. He's named there. I don't think that's going to worry the Sharks at all. I think that what they've got to start to do, the Bulldogs, is if they're any chance of winning this, is just try and get the ball into the hands of some of their really exceptional players. This is not a game that the Bulldogs wouldn't think they don't have a chance, but in my mind, I've got the Sharks. Griff, who you got?
Shane, this is a bread and butter game for the Sharks. This is a team who's built, who's made a few semi-finals in a row by beating the teams they should beat. And I'm going to stick with them here.
Yep.
I only watched the mini of the Bulldogs Para game, and the Bulldogs, they were beaten soundly. They're a team that are still introducing each other, being introduced. They've not played before. They haven't got cohesion yet.
No.
You put some of those names into other teams and they're superstars. You put blue and white jersey on them and they're not quite superstars.
No.
I can't tip against the Sharks in this game. Sharks, as I said, they've built their team around the fact that they win the games they should win, and that's been enough to get them into the semi-finals. Last week, they won a game that I can't say nobody, but most people didn't expect they were going to win. If they produce that sort of form, then they beat the Bulldogs in a similar manner to what the Eels did last week. The Bulldogs, I don't know.
Yeah, no, they're difficult to set the watch by, aren't they?
They are, because they're trying to develop cohesion as a team, and they've got so many different players to what they had last year. I think it's going to take time. I do believe eventually they will come good, but every team pretty much eventually comes good.
Yeah. That's right.
When that's going to be, I'm not quite sure. But
it may not be now. I
do know that that they've got a squad, and they've really they were very successful in the juniors, and we saw some of those guys in the trials. So the future is good, but we've been saying the future is good for the Bulldogs for a few years now, and I don't think it's this year.
No,
and I definitely don't think it's this week.
No,
so Sharks for me.
At Bluebet Stadium, what tends to be a very interesting match, and depending on what side of the fence you sit on, at times you've been the winner and the loser. These two teams never fail to disappoint, and that's the Penrith Panthers taking on the Parramatta Eels. Panthers do have a few or a couple of players coming into the side, notably Mitch Kenny in a hooker, named in at hooker, and also Scott Sorensen named in the second row. The ins for the Eels are just on the extended bench, so they're going to be 1-17. The team that won last week. I'm not going to give any type of synopsis, Griffo. You know Penrith better than anyone. You've seen so many of these games. Why did Penrith win?
Oh, that's well. I'm tipping him only really because I'm a Penrith man. Yeah. But I think it's I think Parra should go in as favourites.
Can I just say, we don't condone betting. So that when we say we don't condone betting, we're going to talk about betting. The distance in prices is astronomical. In that the Panthers are $1.39 and the Eels are $3.03.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I wouldn't have thought the distance between the two sides is that much, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I've missed something.
Look, Penrith have to improve dramatically to win this game. Their attack was poor. The defence was solid. What they did do well was get down, from their own try line to the opposition try line. They were able to do that okay. They were awful in the first half. They kept dropping the ball, but so did Melbourne. They sort of fixed that up in the second half. For them to win, their good players have to play good. Most of their players have been slightly down on form. As I said, the only real threat has been Taylor May in the centres, and to a lesser extent Isaiah Yeo through the middle. Nathan Cleary, he's not been yet at his best, but he will be. It really needs to be this week if they're going to get over the top of Parra. Parra have had the wood on them for a few years now in the competition proper games. It's only really been in the big games at the end of the season where Penrith's been able to get Parra's measure for the last few years, and that's when you want to obviously win. But I don't think they'll be wanting to start 0-2. The side looks a lot better on paper with Mitch Kenny back, and in particular also Scott Sorensen, who's missed both the Wigan game and the game last week. Yeah. I said last week that I was concerned by the fact that they had three props on the bench. We saw Lindsay Smith play a large chunk of the game as a wide forward, an edge forward, and I don't think that worked. He's not a line breaker. He's a man in the middle who does a job there. So it's I'm thinking the bench looks much stronger with Luke Garner being that option. Parra were very, very good against the Bulldogs. Morgan Harper, who I mentioned as a weakness, he had a good game on what I saw. But I do think he'll be targeted, and he should be. Mitch Moses finished that game, and he was literally holding his groin for a fair bit of the game last week. I can't believe that he's anywhere near 100%. I would not be risking him at this stage of the season. Parra were very good last week, all across the board, and they should really be favourites for this game. If you look at form, they were very good last week. Penrith were, they were ordinary in that first half in terms of ball handling. I noticed before the game, or very early, the commentator said Penrith are not going to beat themselves. Well, And they did a fair effort of that in the first half with drop ball. Sunia Taruva, who really never drops a ball. He just dropped a sitter with no pressure on him. And then I think Melbourne may have scored in the, or at least kicked, the penalty goal following from that. But they can improve, Penrith. They have to improve. I'm going to tip them because I do believe it's a sort of a 50-50 game. But if I wasn't a Penrith supporter, I'd actually be back in Para this week.
Okay. I've got Penrith because they're at home. Whenever I can't pick a team, they're at home. Just two things I'm going to add to that. I thought Taruva last week, his running really was the unsung sort of thing for Penrith. He was able to, when he got the ball under his wing, he really ran the ball. I agree with you. May and Yo were just outstanding. One guy I don't give many raps to when we talk about Para, Bryce Cartwright last week.
Yeah, well, it was amazing.
I thought he had a fantastic
played tough.
I thought
for that.
He played. He almost like he played like we knew he could. Like, it's like finally we saw this Bryce Cartwright that we've been waiting what feels like a decade. And I thought if he's going to start playing like this week in, week out, well then, Parramatta, a lot of people are sort of talking about Para being out of the 8 and down the ladder. They could well and truly be there come September. So, very interesting game ahead. I think there's two. Each team has something to play for. That not only for the 2 points, but Parramatta would want to consolidate what they did last week, and Penrith would definitely want to show everyone that was just a glitch in what will be a good season. On Saturday, 3 o'clock, GIO Stadium in Canberra, we've got the Canberra Raiders playing the West Tigers, their first game of the season after they had the bye last week. A few ins for the Raiders. When we look at it, they've got Chris is going to be a main one for them. Sebastian Chris, he's going to come into the side. You'd think they'd find a spot for him. And the others are just more or less on the extended bench. Chris named at centre. The West Tigers, they're a side that really is going to be interesting to watch. It's across the field. It is a Hawthorn. Charlie Staines on the wing for them. Lachlan Galvin, Jaden Sullivan are going to be their halves. Coruscant, he's of course the captain and hooker. You've got Bateman there in the second row. Alex Seyfarth, he's going to be in the lock. Caesar is on the interchange with Alex Twal. It's looking at these two sides and looking at what Canberra had last week. I thought Canberra played very strong. I thought some of their players really muscled up. I thought their forwards actually. I know a lot of the sort of highlights in watching the game. It really felt like their forward pack were what really got over Newcastle and made them struggle to try and get out of trouble. And in the end, I don't think they were strong enough. I looking at this game, I really don't know how. I understand the Tigers have got points in them when you look at Buller at fullback. I just don't think they got the connections. They got the people who can score points. I don't think the Tigers just have the connections. I think the Raiders last week would have got so much confidence out of that game. I've got the Raiders. Griff, who have you got?
Yeah, it's hard to tip against the Raiders based on how well they performed last week, but it'll be interesting to see if all these teams who had the upsets last week can back up that brilliant round one form. The West Tigers, of course, they had the bye. They've got some some talent in the side. The forward pack is very strong. Got a lot of big name players there, like Bateman, Papali'i, Clemmer, Big Stefano. Appy is the best player in the team. New halves combination. Jaden Sullivan has come from the Dragons, and Lachlan Galvin has come from the Clouds. He's a guy who's got enormous raps on him as a junior, and it was mooted that that the Tigers might want to do a swap with the Panthers to get Luai in this year, and I think it was the Mole who was saying maybe a swap with this Galvin, who is. I think he was only playing SG ball last year. He's only a very young boy. He was in school last year, I think. But the massive raps on him. And he's leapfrogged a number of guys, including the guy that's been touted as a very good halfback that they signed in young Fainu, who came across from Manly. He's not listed in the squad at all. His brother is in the 17, Sam Weller. I can't remember the young man's first name, but he's a halfback, and he was on big money at Manly, but he signed with the Tigers, so he'd actually probably be a couple of years older than Lachlan Galvin. So that gives you an idea of what this young man, the esteem he's held in.
Australian schoolboys from memory.
Yeah, last year.
I think, yeah.
But it's only like 18, probably.
Yeah.
There's a guy there who I've never heard of. In the centres, Solomona Fataape. Now, I don't know anything about him, but I'm assuming he's a young man. Buller, we know, debuted last year and he had a great year.
23, he is.
Is that Fataape?
Yeah, Fataape is 23.
Okay, well, he's a little bit older than what I thought. But anyway, look, these guys have got nothing to lose. It's their first game of the year. Going down to Canberra, expected that the Raiders will win at home because they did play so well. The guy that impressed me last week was Xavier Savage, playing on the wing. He was the forgotten man last year. It was expected he was going to play fullback to replace Nick Clockle-Shanstad, who went across to the Warriors, but he didn't get a gig anywhere. They got Rapiner in it to the number one jumper now. But look, they were very good. I'm going to stick with them. I'm not confident. And I actually heard this afternoon that if they win this week, it's Ricky's 250th win as a coach. That's a lot of wins.
Yeah.
Say how many losses, but I'm not a rap on Ricky, obviously, but I've got to give him credit for getting this team to go up to Newcastle and win, and not just win, but win convincingly.
Yeah.
So I had him in the bottom four, but this is a game they would be expected to win, and I'm going to stick with the Raiders for this one, Shano.
Yep, I've got the Raiders. I think the Raiders was too strong. They will be too strong. 5:30 at Queensland, Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. We have the Cowboys versing the Knights. The Cowboys won 17 as they were last week. Lucas and Tula are out for the Newcastle Knights in a bit of a shuffle. What I saw last week from the Knights to begin with was in previous years, if there's one thing you could say about Newcastle is that their forward pack, that they could lay the foundation, and then at times it was their back line that just couldn't quite get it done. I thought their forward pack were absolutely smashed last week at times. They look like a rudderless ship at best during that game at home. They're playing a team in the Cowboys that have found a bit of mojo. Valentine Holmes 7 from 7 last week in the kicking boot, so he's definitely started opened that account well. I thought that for the Cowboys, everyone got the brief perfectly right. That everyone knew exactly what they needed to do. They they turned up. They played hard. They they didn't have a lot thrown at them, to be fair, but what they did do is they were able to just work with what they had in front of them, and it was like that Cowboys of old where the game plan is simple: don't drop the ball and play what's in front of you. And if that means on the third throwing it three wide to someone running onto the ball in space, that's what you do. And they did that last week, and I thought they did it to some. I thought they did it with. I thought they did it to some great degree. I couldn't fault. Again, they were playing the Dolphins. I get that, but you can only play what's in front of you. And I thought what they did play was actually very well. Knights were horrible at times. They just didn't seem to, for me, they just didn't seem to get they just didn't seem to get any type of roll on. That when they sort of looked like they were going to do something, they just fell away. If there was one, I suppose if there was one shining light, I thought there was a period of time just before half time where they weren't far behind. I think Fogarty scored in the 20-odd minute, and then Kalen Ponga sort of got there with 8 to go, and it looked like they were going to actually wrestle something back from them, but they just didn't look right, the Knights. And I think the biggest problem is they really didn't have the possession. Their completion rate last week, I think, was in the high 60s, which isn't good enough to win NRL games when Canberra's was in the 90. I think if they have the same problem this week, Valentine Holmes will make them pay with the boot, and the Cowboys just have absolute speed to burn on either side. I think this is the Cowboys win this week, and it could actually be a good one if the Knights don't turn up, Griff.
Well, the form suggests a big victory to the home team. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
For Newcastle to win this game, we need a massive reversal of form. And we need Kalen Ponga to be the best player on the field.
And interestingly, I thought last week he scored the only tries for Newcastle. It's almost as if he's the only guy that can do anything, which is a problem.
I was interested to see that they played Jack Cogger at dummy half. We saw that he's a quality 6 or 7 when he played with Penrith, and he came on and played at hooker. Obviously, Coach O'Brien is thinking that Gamble and Hastings are, because they did finish the season quite well last year. Yeah. For mine, I would put Gamble to 14, and I would put Cogger in at whether you want 6 or 7. But on last week, I got to go Cowboys. The Cowboys were very good. There's just too many bullets that they can fire, and I'm just going to stick with them. I just think that those back rowers there of the Balloon and then and coming off the bench, Vinafuaki, that is absolute firepower. I thought Labert was outstanding last week. I only watched the mini, but he scored a great individual try. Valentine Holmes was very good. Drinkwater, there's quality. Tom Dearden was very good. There's just so many guns there. I think they're going to blow away the Knights.
Yep, I agree. At 7:35 at Amy Park in Melbourne, the Melbourne Storm take on the New Zealand Warriors. Storm appear to be 1-17. Interestingly, Sean Bohr, 18th man. Be very interesting to see if he cracks it into that top one. Bit more interesting are the people on the extended bench for the Warriors. 3 of those people are Harris Tavita, Tavanga, and Tamari Martin, in what we saw was somewhat of a lackluster game last week, you would have to think that maybe they're starting to think that these players need to be in the side somewhere, where would be up to the coach, I suppose, whether he wants to drop Metcalf or not, and other players to follow. I thought,
I thought Metcalf was pretty good,
and that's the problem. That's the problem.
Shreds, but...
Yeah, that's the problem when I look at it. That he's, I sort of don't get why they'd be on an. I understand if Harris DeVito is the 18th man, most definitely. Adam Pompey is also, he's listed 18th at the moment. I thought, I agree with you. I thought Luke Metcalf actually had a fairly good game. The Storm for me last week showed that they can make the mistakes. They can have a bit of an off game, get in the grind, and win ugly. Which is what I think they did last week. I enjoyed the game, but I don't think they won pretty at all. The Warriors were cruising at one stage in that game, and in some ways, probably should have been more.
Absolutely.
Like that. Like I think they would be thinking, at half time, why aren't we at 18 or even 24? And they just took their foot off where they could have absolutely taken to town. They took their foot off the brake a little bit, and I think half the problem was I think their forward pack just forgot how to get meters. It was after half time. It was a very clunky Warriors side. It's almost like half time killed the momentum, and they they didn't need to go off. No disrespect to the Sharks. I think the Warriors threw it away more than the Sharks won it. The Sharks got the points in the end, and good on them. But the Warriors just were this. I know stating the obvious that it is a game of two halves, first half and second half, but that was it for the Warriors. It was like the team that went in the sheds at half time was not the same team that ran out in the second half. And I just think you do that kind of thing against the Storm. The Storm are going to be looking at, well, this is how they finish. Get on top of them early. I think it's going to be closer than what I'm letting on here, but I think the Storm will have this one, Griff. What do you think?
Well, again, this is if you go by form, it's easy Storm win. Storm were outstanding in defence. The attack was, okay. They got the job done. They scored one try from a kick. That was enough, though.
And dropped some ball.
They dropped a lot of ball in the first half. It was similar to Penrith. They didn't drop too much in the second half.
I don't know what their completion rate was. I didn't see it in the end, but if it was over 70, I'd be surprised. It was really noticeable.
Yeah. They were right up for that game.
Yeah.
Whether they can repeat that level of intensity this week, I'm not sure. Part of me actually wants to tip the Warriors because...
Yeah, I was in there, but I couldn't do it.
You look at their side and they've got guns there. Tuivasa-Sheck, Metcalf.
They've got the people to do it.
DWZ. Tuipuki's, he can do things with his feet that most people can't do. Johnson was off his game, I thought, last week.
Yeah.
You look at the forwards. Fanua Blake scores tries as a prop. But I don't know. I think they're a big chance, the Warriors, but what box do I tick? And I'm going to find it hard to tip against the Storm.
Yeah.
I don't think the Storm will be able to defend as well as they did 2 weeks in a row. And as I said, they were right up for that game. I'm going to really be interested to see, did the teams who perform better than we expected in round one, are they going to be able to do it in round two? If they can, that's going to be a massive feather in their cap. And I'm not just talking about the Storm. I'm talking about teams like the Cowboys, like the Raiders, like Para, like the Dragons, teams that exceeded probably what was expected of them. And a lot of those teams are coming up against sides that were way below what we expected. But I will stick with the home team. Even, we've got to remember that this home team is without two of their biggest guns in Munster and Big Nelson.
Yep.
That underlines what a performance it was last week. I do think we might see some better work from their attacking players, like Pappenhausen, Hughes. They had decent games, but we didn't see them at their sort of attacking best, because Penrith actually did defend well also. They're probably going to have a bit more space against the Warriors. I'll stick with the home team, but I really wouldn't surprise me at all if the Warriors beat them.
Yep. Yes, I think that's actually I think that's a really going to be a really interesting game to watch, as is this one. On Sunday at 4:05, we have at 4 Pines Park in Sydney the Manly Warringah Seagulls taking on the Sydney Roosters. Big out for the Seagulls is Jason Saab. He's someone that really, looking at the hamstring tear, they're talking 6 weeks, but like with any hamstring tear, depending on its severity, it could be anything. Like they're not even remotely talking about. Yeah. They just basically he's out. That's what they're talking.
This is a guy that's built for speed, and a lot of these sort of speed guys. They do their hamstrings. They run so fast. The hamstring tears are not uncommon.
Interestingly, Tommy Talau has been pulled in there. He's probably the big one. That's the main in. Parker again named on the extended bench. Be interesting to see if that's the 1 to 17 they run with.
Will be interesting, Shane.
Yeah, I think not.
Players, so
I think not, and the reason being is when I flick to the other team, which is the Roosters, Dom Young in. He's on the wing. We have Rhea Hargreaves in. We also have I think Egan Butcher on the bench. So Egan Butcher, on the extended bench. Angus Crichton on the extended bench as well. Looking at these two teams, I'm looking at the Roosters side, just flicking through. Tedesco, Tupou, Swatali'i, Manu, Young, Keary, Walker. That's what a backline. I'm looking at what Tedesco done round 1. But Trbojevic, Talau, Kula, Garrick and Paulo, I really think, for me, I think that's, I think when I look at their team, the Seagulls, I just think it's going to be that centre combination, Akula and Talau, that they might just target. Luke Brooks was fantastic in round 1. He's going to have to be again. Their forward packs really will set the scene. Interestingly, that Ben Trbojevic now just seems to be the player they're going to put in the second row. I think Schuster might have played his last football starting. I think that he's had numerous issues.
He's coming back from injury and
chicken pox.
Reserve grade,
chicken pox.
Oh, he'll be back there.
Yeah,
but it might be off the bench.
I think he'll be on the bench from now. Looking at Ben Trbojevic now, he played. I think these two forward packs are going to really put on a show this weekend. I just think, for me, that when I look at the Roosters back line, and especially in that centre 3/4 region where they can get a bit of space, with Tedesco running around. Kiri feeding good ball. Dom Young's back. I just think that the three quarters, they've just got it on both sides at the moment. I thought Jackson Paulo was probably a liability at times. I'm amazed South, they peppered him once and scored, and I thought, geez, just keep exploiting that. And they never really did. Um, they know his weaknesses as well as he does because he played there. I've got the Roosters in this one, Griff. I think the three-quarter line is going to be where it's at, and they're going to get. I think the Roosters are going to get far better value out of that.
I can't disagree. I don't think there's going to be too many weeks this year where I'll tip against the Roosters.
Yeah.
One of the great mysteries of the world is how the Roosters fit their squad under the same salary cap as everyone else, and talk about the sombrero and whatnot. But I mean, the guys that can't make the side or who are injured, Billy Smith and Spencer are out for various reasons. But then you mentioned some of the guys on the extended bench, Connor Watson, Egan
Crichton.
Butcher, Angus Crichton. It's a quality squad, and as I said, I won't be tipping against them too often this year. I do rate Manly very highly, and I do believe Manly will be in the playoffs this year. I did say it before what I thought was an outstanding effort against the Rabbitohs. I do think there's a weakness there that you mentioned in the number 5. I've not seen anything to convince me that young Bolo is up to the standard of the NRL. I know he's an NRL player. He's played probably 20 or 30 games. Played a number with Souths. He had some ordinary performance. I know Penrith targeted him in a few games, and it didn't help the cause of the Rabbitohs. They were happy enough to let him go to the Roosters. I didn't think he was too bad at the Roosters. I thought he was actually a bit better than what he was at the Rabbitohs, but Manly must have given him a better contract. And obviously, when you mentioned the Roosters outside backs, they're just amazing.
Yeah.
I think Manly have better players than in what I see is, firstly, I think Garrick probably is best suited on the wing, given the loss of Saab. I think Tommy Talau is more likely. Well, I see Tommy Talau as a centre more so than a winger. I would have Brad Parker in this team before I would have the winger there. They've also got Mike Tyson, Raymond Tui, Maiolo Viaga. He's another option there. I think Jamie Humphries is an outside back as well. So, look, Seabold, he's got this team up for a big game in the first round, and I thought they're outstanding. This game, I expect we're going to see a lot of tries. Both teams have plenty of bullets to fire, but I just think the Roosters have got more. And that 2-5, Tupou, Suoli'i, Manu, and Young, there are tries galore for those guys. And you got the skill of Kiri and Walker feeding them, and Tedesco playing through the middle, and that's going to be tough to stop. So it's Roosters for me. Both packs of forwards, I think, are fantastic. But again, I think probably the forwards are going to cancel each other out. I think it's the outside backs where the advantage is Roosters, and I think they win for that reason.
Yep, I agree. That's exactly where I'm at. At 6:15 on Sunday night, it's a Sunday night game. Always enjoy a Sunday night game. We have the Dolphins taking on
St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, it is.
St. Patrick's Day.
St. George Illawarra Dragons. Interesting game. Ewan Aiken, Katoa, Avaliro. Always say Jake's name.
Avarillo.
Jake
Yeah.
Avarillo. Always get
Is
it
this the
wrong.
way to
Like, I
Avarillo?
know.
That song from the 70s.
I always get it.
I know
as
you
a
weren't
tongue
born in the
twister.
70s. Sorry, Shane.
That's all right. Always get it as a tongue twister. They're in the side for the Dolphins. I suppose, Blake Lowry in for the Dragons starting lineup. Luciano Leilua is also in. He's going to be playing. He's going to be on the bench. This is a really interesting game. I was actually looking through this game today, and I was keen to see what the fallout was going to be from the Dolphins of who they were going to add. They've added a few players into the team that I think probably make it slightly stronger for them. I don't think it makes it strong enough. When I look at the Dragons team, for me, I'm looking at people like, I think Tyrell Sloan has the ability to tear the Dolphins apart, like what we saw the Cowboys doing. I don't think the Dragons are going to have a day out, though. I think this is going to be a really tough game, and whatever team decides they want to hold the ball, whatever team decides that they want to run the ball, I think they're the team that's going to win. For me, I look at the actual forward pack for the Dragons, and I see players who actually have played a lot of NRL, who are solid players who have played at teams that really demand a level of excellence. Like, I'm not saying that they're young by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Sewer and Eisenhuth in the second row starting, I think that's a good move. Molo in at the bookend, he's going to have to be good defensively. So is Blake Laurie. Jesse Bromwich is going to run at them. Marshall King's going to be out. Is going to be darting out a hooker. They're going to have to be smart. Jack DeBellin, I think, is going to be a very interesting game as well for him to see if he can come and do what he does. I've got a gut feeling Leilua is going to find his way on the side very quickly. Yep. I think for me, when I look at these two sides, I see that the Dragons might have the ability to set the groundwork, and then Tyrell Sloan, who's in a bit of form at the moment, might be able to have a day out. Ben Hunt controlling things. When I looked at this, I still wasn't sold on picking the Dragons, but my final point is I think that Ben Hunt's kicking game is just going to be far more superior than that of Katoa and Nikorima. I thought Nikorima was actually, at times, some of the kicks he did last week, he should have just ran the ball. He would have got more meters, and they would have been more effective. That's where I think this game is at, where I think both forward packs are going to play well. I think you've got certain people on the sides who can bring the game apart. I think Tyrell Sloan will probably do it a little bit more better than what anyone from the Dolphins can do. I know they've got the Hammer and Jermaine Osako, but for me, it's going to be Ben Hunt's kicking game. I got a gut feeling that about half an hour into this match, the Dolphins are going to be sick and tired of bringing it out of their end. They're going to drop the ball, and that's where the Dragons will pounce. I don't think there's going to be a big scoring game, but I do think that they're just going to get so frustrated with having to run backwards and forwards that I think they're going to be gassed. And I've got the Dragons winning away, which is, don't say that too often, but I think the Dragons will go to Queensland and come away with the Chockies from KO Stadium in Redcliffe. Griff, who have you got?
Yeah, this is another one of these games from last week where one side underperformed and the other side played much better than we expected. I'm going to stick with the Dragons because I was impressed by what they showed. I think Coach Flanagan is obviously getting the best out of a lot of these guys. I was impressed by his son, Kyle Flanagan. Interestingly, we saw a lot of Kyle Flanagan at first receiver and allowing Ben Hunt to play a little bit wider. I think that worked well. The Dragons have got bullets to fire with, you look at from 1 to 5, Sloan, Lomax, Sully, Bird, Ravalawa.
Yeah.
And then you've got Leilua, the big signing, who I'm sure we'll see in the game pretty early. Maybe for Tom Eisenhuth. But yeah, Jaden Sewer obviously is another guy who can break the line. I'm going to tip the Dragons. The Dolphins have got plenty of talent, and mainly in the back line. It'll be interesting. I didn't understand why Avarillo wasn't there last week. New was the player in the centres. He's been subbed into the extended bench. Also, interestingly, the chief playmaker and Sean O'Sullivan has been put onto that extended bench and bringing back young Katoa. They're big changes to make from round 1 to round 2. Particularly, you're axing your number 7. Maybe there's a reason for that. Ewan Aitken wasn't there last week. Connolly Lemuelu, who I rate quite highly, he got injured. The interchange bench of Kerr, Bromwich, Nichols, and Wallace, they may be the oldest interchange bench ever in the NRL. I'm not sure about that, but it's a team with a lot of old guys and some youth as well. But I just think the Dragons, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's complete opposite, because but it's an opportunity here for the Dragons, who a lot of people, including myself, had as wooden spooners, to get a fast start to the season, and I think they'll take it. I think Ben Hunt will get his team home here, and it'll be interesting to see. Fair chance if they win the second game, and they had a big for and against from the first one, that they might be on top of the ladder after 2 rounds.
Yeah.
But we shall see.
We will see. Well, Griffo, that's I'll start that again. That rounds out our preview of round 2. They're our tips. I hope if you're using them, they go well, and if you don't, well, I hope you go all right. As long as you pick South Sydney. If you pick South to win, I hope you win. I definitely haven't, and I think it's going to be an interesting week this week. I think we see a lot of, like you were saying, Griff, a lot of the upsets that could teams can consolidate on last week, build on what they've done, and really, they're teams who we thought would have no points. They're going into 4 points. So thanks again for your insight, Griffo. As always, it's been a pleasure. To everyone else out there in Rugby League land, good luck with your tips this week. I hope your team plays well. And as always, be good. Take care. Keep safe. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Shano. Thanks, listeners.
Thank you,
Talk
Griffo.
next week.